My name is Papa Page. And tonight we walk into the woods where maps go quiet. There's a place in the hills of Connecticut where even birds forget to sing. A place where compasses spin, where shadows stretch longer than they should, and where the earth holds secrets under moss and root. The locals call it Dudleytown, but they say its name like a bruise, soft, and hoping it won't answer back. It was never really a town, just a cluster of cabins clinging to the dark slope of the dark entry forest. Born sometime in the early 1740s. A few families came up from Cornwall looking for land, quiet land no one else wanted. That should have been the first sign. The forest was too still, the soil too thin, crops failed, livestock vanished, people whispered of things in the tree line. At first, it was dismissed, backwoods superstition. But then the Dudleys arrived. Yes, those Dudleys, descendants of Edmund Dudley, an English noble beheaded for treason. And with them, something else came. Something that doesn't show up in deeds or ledgers. Something colder. The stories say the curse followed the bloodline, that the very name Dudley pulled a black thread through history, weaving misfortune, madness, and death wherever it touched ground. And in that forest, it buried itself deep. People went mad in Dudleytown. Not just melancholy or cabin fever, real madness. One man wandered screaming into the woods and was never seen again. A woman, after the death of her husband, claimed she saw faces in the trees. Not on the trees, in them. Another family vanished without a trace, leaving dinner still warm. It wasn't just the people who changed. The light itself went wrong. No matter the hour, the village was dim. Sunlight filtered in, like it was afraid to stay too long. Shadows came quick and stayed deep. Travelers said they lost time walking through. What should have been an hour became 3. Watches stopped. Horses refused to go near it. And yet, more families moved in. Hope does strange things to people. But hope can rot. They built cabins, chopped trees, tried to till the soil, but the land was stubborn, unkind, and the forest, it always came back, grew faster, closer, tighter, as if it wanted them gone. They say the final straw came when a man named William Tanner was found dead, face frozen in terror, hands clutching his own throat. No wounds, no blood, just that look, like he'd seen something the world wasn't meant to hold. By the early 1800s, Dudleytown was silent. No smoke from chimneys, no footsteps, no light. Just stone foundations and trees that leaned in like they were listening. And maybe they still are. Because people still go there. Ghost hunters, teenagers, doubters to speed. And not all of them come back the same. If they come back at all. They say there's a sound in Dudleytown that isn't wind. It comes low and slow, like breath through broken teeth. Locals call it the forest's exhale, but those who have stepped past the old stone walls know better. It isn't air, it isn't trees, it's something else. And it's saying something. In 1901, a man named Henry Mallory bought a piece of land near the ruins. He was a scholar from Hartford, professor of old languages, fond of whiskey and long walks. He didn't believe in curses, laughed at the idea, called the stories Puritan paranoia. So he built a cabin on the edge of what was left of Dudleytown. He lasted 2 months. At first, he wrote letters, described the silence as perfect, not a bird, not a squirrel, not even the buzz of flies. He said it gave him clarity, inspiration. Then the tone shifted. His last letter was never sent. They found it tucked under a loose board in his floor. Ink smeared, handwriting uneven. Just a few broken lines. The trees speak now. They know I see them. I woke up with soil in my mouth. They found Henry kneeling in the center of what had once been a garden. His eyes were open, staring at something that wasn't there. Mouth full of dirt. No injuries, no signs of struggle. Just silence. After that, no one tried to live near the ruins again. But people visited. The 1940s brought hikers, photographers, curious minds with flashlights and theories. Most left with nothing but blurry photos and cold feet. But some brought something back. A woman from Bridgeport returned home mute. Doctors found no damage to her throat. Just a note in her hand. 3 words scrawled in red ink. It followed me. A young man carved strange symbols into his bedroom wall after a single night in the forest. When asked why, he only said, "They won't whisper if the symbols are watching." And then there were the twins. 2 boys, 17, hiked in for a dare. Only one came back. The survivor claimed they were walking near one of the old cellars when the trees shifted. Not the branches, the trees. They bent inward, forming a circle. He said his brother stepped forward and was gone between one blink and the next. He waited, called, screamed, but there was nothing. Not a sound, not a footprint, just that same wrong silence, stretching out like a held breath. When he was found, his hair had turned white at the temples. He was barefoot. His socks were full of leaves. He never spoke again. Dudleytown doesn't roar. It doesn't chase or shriek. It just watches, waits, and whispers. Not with voice, with absence. There's a copy of an old map kept locked in the archives of the Cornwall Historical Society, one of the few known documents to ever show Dudleytown by name. Not many know it exists. Fewer know what's on it. Because the roads, they don't lead in. They only lead out. The map was hand-drawn, inked in brown with trembling lines. You can see the normal towns: Cornwall, Sharon, Kent. But Dudleytown, it's different. The markings around it are lighter, like the ink refused to touch that part of the paper. And across the forest edge, in faint, it's not official, of course. The historians call it an artifact of imagination. But one of them, a woman named Ruth Delancey, kept looking. She disappeared in 1984. Her last known location, somewhere near the ruins. Her last recorded words, left on a cassette tape. I think it's under the cellar. There's no floor, just black. Her body was never recovered. But the tape, it didn't end with static. It ended with breathing. You see, the land beneath Dudleytown isn't empty. There are old cellars there, deep, stone-lined pits where homes once stood. They say one of them never ends, that if you drop a rock, it doesn't hit bottom, just falls, and falls, and falls. Some say it's not a cellar at all, that it's a door, and the village a kind of plug, something that was never meant to be disturbed. And yet, we disturbed it. They say that's why the forest regrows so fast. It's not reclaiming the village. It's sealing it, trying to push back the cracks we made in something older than land deeds and boundary lines. Something that watches from below, not above. A few years ago, a man built a drone to fly over Dudleytown. Wanted aerial footage for his paranormal project. It launched fine. Flew steady, but halfway through the flight, the video cut to black. He recovered the drone the next morning. It was sitting perfectly upright in the middle of the foundation stones. Not crashed, not scratched, just placed. The footage gone. Morning. But the microphone had recorded something. Not a scream, not a voice. Just a sound. Wet, constant, or like something breathing through soil. In 1996, a man named Charles Benedict moved into a cabin 3 miles outside Dudleytown. He was a former journalist, war reporter, the kind of man who didn't scare easy. He said he was writing a book, The Last Town That Died. Said he didn't believe in ghosts, just bad history and human fear. But Charles didn't stay in that cabin. Not for long. He set up trail cams, sensors, recorders, spent his days walking the woods, cataloging the ruins. Said he wanted to bring the truth to light. Neighbors, the few that still lived near the woods. Said he looked tired. Gray. Like something was pulling at. He stopped answering calls in December. The sheriff found his cabin unlocked, fireplace cold, food untouched. On the table, a stack of notes, dozens of pages, scribbled in cramped handwriting. But most of them were unreadable, not from damage, but because they were written on top of each other. Again and again, like he had to bury each word under more ink. Except one page, one line. The forest is just the skin. They searched for him for 2 weeks, found nothing but one of his boots. It was dry, untouched by snow, sitting upright beside the cellar foundation in the heart of Dudleytown. The same cellar Ruth Delancey mentioned. Some say Charles finally got too close. Others say he found something. But there's more. A ranger, who was part of the search team, came back a day after the search ended. Said he had to go back for something. He never told anyone what. 2 weeks later, he mailed an envelope to the Cornwall station. Inside, a Polaroid. Dark, blurry. But you could just make out the cellar, and something standing inside it. Tall, thin, with hands that were too long. No one knows where the photo is now. It's said to have gone missing, like so many other things tied to Dudleytown. But some say the forest doesn't want to be known. It doesn't want to be feared. It just wants to be left alone. And every time someone walks too deep, digs too far, or listens too closely, it reminds them. There's an old superstition around Cornwall, something not written down, only passed from mouth to mouth, like a warning coated in dust. Don't step on the roots at Dudleytown. They're not sleeping. In 2002, a group of amateur paranormal investigators hiked into the area. 4 of them, armed with cameras, flashlights, and ego. They made jokes, filmed themselves walking over the cellar stones, laughing at cursed dirt. Then one of them screamed. The footage, what survived, shows the flashlight beam jerking sideways, catching movement along the forest floor. Not a shadow, not an animal. A root, thick, gnarled, and damp, retracting into the earth like a worm. They ran. 3 made it out. The 4th. They found his phone, still recording, lying next to an old half-buried stone carved faintly with one word, "Listen." There was no blood, just drag marks in the leaves. The police called it an accident. The papers called it hysteria. But the locals, they stayed quiet. Because they remember. They remember the man who once tried to cut down a tree near the ruins and couldn't, not because of the blade, but because the tree bled. Not red, not sap, doctor, but something black and slow. And then there was the dog, a hunting hound, that refused to step past a ring of stones near the cellar, barked until its voice went raw, then lay down and died. And died. No wounds, and no disease, just gone, as if something had reached in and turned him off. You see, there's a theory that Dudleytown isn't haunted in the way people think. It's not ghosts, not spirits, not souls. It's something growing. A rot. An intelligence made of root and stone and silence. Older than the village. Older than the forest. And every person who steps too far in becomes part of it. They don't scream. They don't fight. They just vanish like dew into morning. And the forest, it closes behind them, like nothing ever happened at all. They say there's only one structure left in Dudleytown that stands. It's not a house, not a fence, not even a wall. It's a foundation, a ring of stone, sunken and moss-covered, tucked so deep in the trees that it vanishes in shadow even at noon. Locals call it the last one. No one remembers who built it. There are no names, no markers, just silence. But if you press your ear to the ground inside it, you hear pulsing. Not mechanical, not natural. Something ancient. One hiker, a man named Cooper Hensley, did just that, a skeptic. He posted about it online, going ghost hunting in Dudleytown. Bet he'll find more squirrels than spirits. He never posted again. 3 days later, his car was found abandoned on the trailhead. Keys in the ignition, doors unlocked, and in the back seat, a stack of notebooks filled with tight, obsessive handwriting. It's not a place. It's a mouth. The stones hold it shut. The trees remember the shape of what was buried. Some pages were torn, some burnt at the edges. On one, a final message. I stepped into the circle, and it opened its eyes. People still come to the last one, some out of curiosity, some looking for Cooper, but they don't stay long. Not after the way the birds stop singing. Not after the way the air begins to feel thick, like breathing through wool. And then there's the light. People say the shadows around the last one don't match the trees. They bend wrong, like something just outside of sight is watching you, and you've stepped into its blink. There are theories, of course. Some say Dudleytown was never cursed. It was a seal. A wound stitched into the earth, with cabins and roots and stone. But time forgets how to hold back old things. And maybe it's remembering now. Because the foundation is cracked. The trees grow differently, and the whispers, they're louder. They don't ask you to leave anymore. They ask you to stay. The last person known to enter Dudleytown legally was a park ranger named Miles Carter. He wasn't a believer, said the stories were just colonial leftovers and internet fuel. But something drew him in. Call it boredom, call it gravity. He was supposed to survey the land boundaries, in, out, 4 hours max. He didn't come out. They found his backpack a week later, resting gently at the base of a tree. Inside, his phone, radio, and a notebook. The radio worked, the phone didn't. The notebook was damp, pages curled, but the writing was intact. The last entry was short. I'm not alone here. But whatever's here, it doesn't walk. Search teams combed the woods for days. Dogs wouldn't track. Drones lost signal. No footprints, no broken branches. Just whine through leaves, and the soft, heavy sense of being watched. Eventually, they gave up. But 2 months later, a letter arrived. No return address, no postage. Inside was a single photo, slightly out of focus, but unmistakable. A view from the center of the last foundation, looking outward. The forest in frame, motionless. Except for one thing. A figure. Just barely visible among the trees. Too thin, too tall. Eyes, not quite where they should be. Mouth open, but not in a scream. Like it was listening. Beneath the photo was one line, handwritten in shaking ink. Don't come looking. It's awake now. They say the letter vanished from the sheriff's office the same day it was logged. And the file? Empty. Like someone or something came back for it. Because that's what the forest does. It waits. Not for answers, not for prayer. Just for footsteps.